you're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, I'm going to be discussing parental alienation, explaining what that is and the signs of it. And I have someone joining me the show today live to discuss parental alienation and their experiences through that. And many of you are experiencing that right now. You're going through a separation, a divorce, and you're dealing with this. Your kids have turned against you. You're trying to figure out what's the situation, what really happened. Why did this happen? Just a few months ago, my son was so happy to see me. Everything was going well. We had great visitations, great times together, just hanging out, having a great time. And now it's like pulling teeth. It's like they don't want to talk to me. They're not happy with me. Seems to be avoiding my calls. When I do hang out with them and spend time with them, it takes, an hour to break that shell of some sort of issue that's going on. And this is parental alienation. We're going to explain what that looks like. And so many of you that are dealing with this, you can learn from this, understand from this, and then see what you need to be doing maybe to safeguard yourself or to make changes to your situation. And with parental alienation, it's when the other parent, right, whether it's the mother or the father, is talking negatively about the other parent, negatively and trying to turn the child against that parent. It's a strategy to damage that relationship. And that's what that is all about. And it happens all the time. And you might have had a great relationship with your kid prior to this, and you don't even understand what's happened, what's changed in the relationship, and all of a sudden things change automatically. It's like a 180-degree turn, and you don't even understand what's happened because you haven't done anything wrong. You haven't hurt the child. You haven't been in the negative, but things have been said about you that you don't even know exist. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And so there's 5 signs of parental alienation. Children are usually angry with the parent that the other parent has turned them against. The other parent attempts to keep the child away from that parent that is being alienated. There's negative statements said about that parent to the child behind the other parent's back. It's interesting too is that when all this is happening, the child at one point in time, was happy with everybody. Everything was fine. And now because mom or dad is feeding this information to them, that particular child even appears guilty when spending time with the parent that has been alienated because, they feel bad because they're hurting mom, and I'm putting air quotes, or they're hurting dad, air quotes. And also that parent is making false accusations, even possibly about mental, emotional, or physical abuse, targeting that parent that they are alienating. So this is very important to understand because if you're going through this or you have a friend or a family member that's going through this, you want to share this information with them, get this show to them, share them the link to the show. It's on, it's on air, it's on the radio live, but it's also podcast form, so you can share this evergreen content with them for them to hear it, to understand it, even to share this with legal counsel or their lawyer so they understand what they're dealing with. Now, joining me live in studio is someone that's been dealing with it live in real time, 24/7. And Will's joining me live here on Live Your True Life Perspectives. Will, so glad to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley. I'm happy to be here and share a little bit of story for people so they can put this in perspective. I hate to say it, but like if you're going to experience this, it's going to be a miserable situation where you don't really understand what's going on because you've had this great relationship with your child and they love you, and then they don't love you, and it's very sneaky and sly how it goes down. Incredibly painful. You get these little kids, and I love Dad, and I like hanging out with Dad, and then slowly the phone calls aren't picked up. The little social media avenue that you used is no longer available where you could see your child. And in my situation, I was working on the road, so we depended on these things to be able to communicate. And one by one, they're clipped off. Well, why were they clipped off? How did this happen? We know how it happened, but it happened. It's very hard to recover from it. Which way do you go? How do you get your child back? What legal ways can I use to find my child. I miss my child. Where did this come from? And you know that there's trash talking going on. How else does this happen? We'll get into that, won't we?
Oh, for sure. And I'm so glad you came on the show because I think that a lot of people don't really understand what's happening. I think it happens, it's like so quick, and you don't understand, and all of a sudden the next thing you know, you're seeing your child, you're having that time with them, and it's just so distant. It just seems so distant.
So incredibly distant, and that's our greatest currency is time. So when you think about your time, and you're going through a divorce, everything takes time. Anybody going through a divorce understands that, oh my God, I'm getting robbed all this money, and everything takes time, and every moment is billable. Well, they set it up in a certain way that you don't get to talk to your children through this divorce. Everything's set up in a certain way that's not beneficial to me. I'm not saying anything about men or women, but it was not beneficial to me. I'm trying to talk to my kids. Well, you're not allowed to talk to kids during this period of time. So the other person's talking trash about this, myself, talking trash about me, dragging my name through the mud, and doing it in front of everybody, including my children. So, and getting upset during this. So when you go through that, you're sitting there saying, what the hell happened? Well, mom's been telling everybody to destroy dad. Now the kid's got a bad taste in their mouth. I don't want to upset mom, and that's really where the beginnings of this monster that this thing's become, where it comes from.
Well, and you're right, and I want to break that down real quick. So everybody that's listening, the whole concept is that, whether it's mom or dad that's, turning the children against the other parent, what happens is that they start, sharing this negative information, usually false information, all false information, and then they start crying about it or get emotional, and share this with the kid, and then the kid's ultimately wanting to do what's right or feels very kind of stuck in the middle.
Well, stuck in the middle, and also very protective of the parent that's upset.
Exactly.
Right. So you create this narrative, which is false. Where mom's crying and having, a little bed party with the other kid. And, I can't believe dad's left us. Because dad's miserable in the marriage. But they create this terrible narrative where I'm just this evil monster. And I can tell you right now, I'm not an evil monster. Mm-hmm. But that's been created for me. 100%. Children, that there's just no way. I've got all the videos on my telephone to prove that I was not a bad father. Mm-hmm. I love my children. If you have children, you understand what I'm talking about.
Well, and the issue, too, that we're dealing with are children, their brains are not fully developed. I mean, until a certain age. And these kids are far from fully developed brains, and they're being told, certain things over and over again to make them believe a certain concept about the other parent. And if you keep telling somebody over and over again negative things about that other parent, eventually you're either going to believe it or you're going to be so stuck and feeling like you got to take up for whatever parent is telling you these types of things.
Right, 100%. And, custody agreements are custody agreements. Some of my kids are with their mother 90% of their time.
Right.
So how do I even compete with this?
You can't.
It is next to impossible. And then you're stuck in the legal system. What are we going to do here? We're going to hire an attorney. We're going to spend a bunch of money. We're going to create more bad memories that reinforces what is already going on. Mm-hmm. Which way is up? We'll figure that out in time. Because I'm still, like she said, this is live. This is part of my life right now. I'm battling to try and see my own children with a court order in force. How do you use that court order? That can be scary, too, because it all validates what mom's doing. You get the sheriff to come over and provide your children, your visitation right to your children. Well, how's that going to go? You're going to have an upset mother. You're going to have upset children because they don't want to upset mom. It is really a deep, dark rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because then if you do that, and then there's some force that's being used, and then it's like, oh yeah, dad's controlling. That's this, that's that. Oh look, he's controlling. He's controlling you.
Absolutely. So which way do you go with this?
Or if you don't do anything, then so you're like, oh, he doesn't care about you.
You are so painted into a corner. It's unbelievable. And
look, he doesn't care about you.
Yeah,
he hasn't called you.
He didn't do this. He didn't try. Mm-hmm. So it's really a catch-22. Which direction do I go with this, and how do I handle it? And I've found...
and how do I get peace in my own life?
In my own life. I just lost my children. Mm-hmm. My children. I lost them. They're gone. Don't pick up phone calls. Try and pick up the phone and call your child, and it goes right to voicemail. Who's in charge of that? I'd love for someone. I know who's in charge of it. The person that's in charge of their technology. It is wild because now we're even at a bigger disadvantage because you have to have a parent that's in charge of your technology. So dad can be turned off just like that.
Exactly. Cut out
100%. Just so everybody knows, it's been since 2021 that I've talked to one of my daughters. We had a great afternoon, but their mother flipped out and created a very bad situation. That daughter has not talked to me, will not pick up the phone in a couple of years. It's very painful. It's a bummer. My other daughter, who was stronger, has recently been canceled. I've been canceled by her mother. The phone goes right to voicemail. Can't get her on any social media outlets. And I know she has them. It's poor parenting and it's poor practice. Who doesn't need a mom and a dad? It just contributes to the rot of our society.
Well, and it's interesting too, like you said, like with one of your daughters, it's been a while since you've seen her, and then you all had a really good experience. You had a really good time, and then that was it, right?
It was great. I mean, we were out at a fishing pond having a good time. And time got a little away from us. We didn't have any of these agreements by the court when it happened, and I got a phone call with her mother being irate. I'm going to call the police and all this stuff that really was unnecessary, and it really created a traumatic situation for the little girl. And that was it. I have not spoken to her since. She did answer me once and said, "Please stop."
Oh, wow.
And it was heartbreaking. This is my child. Like, are you kidding? Do we have bad time when we hang out? You know, at least talk to me. Somebody talk to me. And it's wild how it works out. It is, everything is okay. Maybe not the best. You know, parents and children have their problems just like anybody else. But when this happens, it ends up that you are blackballed from your own children.
And that's interesting. It's like the fact that y'all had this great time. You know, you weren't thinking about it's not a big deal. And this is your child. And next thing you know, she's calling you. Your soon-to-be ex is calling you, you know, threatening the police involvement, all that kind of stuff. And then that's what happens after
Absolutely. And I'm not going there. I'm above that. It's nonsense. It's not worth it. Nobody wants to be involved with the law on that level. But it creates a situation where you might need to use that. Nobody wants to use that.
No one wants to use that. So stay tuned. When we return, we'll be talking more about parental alienation. We're going to be talking about Will's story, what's really happening here to understand that, because that can really, you know, connect with many of you out there. Unfortunately, this is a real thing. Unfortunately, this is happening all over, and kids are losing one of their parents. And like Will said, it's, you know, it's one side or the other. Do you go after them, you know, legally and then create more of this, or do you step back and possibly be painted into another corner? And we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about understanding like the changes so that you can start seeing like the changes that are happening and be able to be aware of what's happening, be able to see the changes in your interaction with your children and being able to acknowledge that. Will's also going to be discussing, you know, the kind of the order of the changes and how it began. So stay tuned. You don't want to change the channel, because we're going to be talking about that, and also court options as well, because this can be very helpful for anybody that's going through this process. Live Your True Life Perspectives with me, your host, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time. Well, you know it. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're examining parental alienation, understanding it, defining it. Will joining me in studio here live. We're talking about this. So, Will, you know, when this parental alienation began, what were some of the changes that you saw when it came to your kids?
So with the children, right? It's never, divorce is never a good deal. It's always very ugly. It's dirty laundry airing, and when there's children involved, Maybe you take your eye off the ball. I tried not to take my eye off the ball, but it ended up, it took my eye off the ball a little bit. But it started with, I had Skype addresses and telephone numbers and all these avenues to, and promises from my ex-wife that I'd be able to talk to those kids and see those kids whenever I wanted. And slowly, my phone calls would go unanswered. My children stopped calling me altogether. It was always Dad reaching out, and it was like a slow burn. And eventually it's like, okay, I'm only getting to talk to my child once every 2 days, then once every 3 days, and once every week, and once every other, and then it just ceases, and it's wild because the whole time that this is going on, when you wake up to it, you understand there's somebody talking about me. I had one experience where my daughter called me in the middle of the night. She was in an uncomfortable situation, and she needed her dad, and she called me, and I was like, "Are you okay? Why are you calling me from a dark room?" It was weird, and that was one of the last actual times that this little girl called her father, and I'm sure that it was cemented with some other falsities.
What do you think was going on in that moment when she calls you?
From what I know, they were at a hotel. And whatever was going on at that hotel was uncomfortable to her. Mm-hmm. And she was, it was probably strange new people, and who knows what was going on. But the little girl needed her dad, and she called. But that kind of thing doesn't happen anymore. Mm-hmm. So we've been cut off via any social media, even the clean ones. Like Skype's pretty clean.
Yeah.
Pretty clean for social media place. But like even the dirty ones that I know they're on due to poor parenting, like a Snapchat, where if their number is in my contacts, they're actually using the app. I can't get them there. I can't get them over the phone. I cannot get a hold of my children. Maybe via snail mail, but Mom is picking that and throwing it in the garbage.
Right.
So it is very real, and it happened. Like all of a sudden, I'm scratching my head here. Where are my children? What are they doing? What's going on?
What about with I know that people have Androids and Apples and everything, but I know that particularly we've talked about this. Will, you have Apple.
I do. I have an iPhone. It's a great little piece of equipment.
And so they have Apple too. And
absolutely.
So she has.
So they're minor. They're minors, right?
Right.
So you can't have a little child set up a. I know that kids are smart, and I'm not discounting any kids that aren't listening to this, but for sure, like a kid, they can do this. They can figure it out. But there's no way that my 9-year-old child is shutting off my iMessage to her,
right,
and making it so when I pick up the phone to call her, it goes directly to voicemail. Mm. The kid is just not going to do that.
No.
So it's very control. Like the control thing here is wild, and it's also wild that I saved a voicemail in the heat of our divorce that she promised me she was going to do this.
Oh, interesting.
She sure did. She promised. She said, if your behavior, I don't like you, you are never going to see your children.
Wow. So you have actual proof of that?
Yeah. I mean, I had a high conflict divorce, but I have the proof. It doesn't do any good. And I'm sure when we get back, we're going to talk about legal ways we can go about this. And I'll let you all know what a pain in the ass that is.
Exactly. And so we'll be right back. But in the meantime, think about that. You can't prove this kind of stuff, too. That's what's so hard about with the iCloud and the iMessage is that you know that the kid's not doing it, but it's so hard to prove who's doing it.
Who's in control.
And this is all about control because, remember, they've already divorced. So it's not about the money. It's not about the house. It's now about the kids. It's the one thing that she can control in the situation. So stay tuned. You don't want to change this channel. We got a lot more coming up. Live Your True Life Perspectives with me, your host, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time, but back this time in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're talking about parental alienation, understanding it, what it is, and how to deal with it. Will is live in studio with me. And Will, I have a question because I think this is very important. When we talk about separation, we talk about divorce, we go through the process. When you brought this up, I'm assuming, to your lawyer. How did they respond about the parental alienation?
Okay, so this is for everybody out there dealing with lawyers. This is where it gets real fun. So you send an email, you get a $20 bill. It's how the system works. But I have a good attorney. I don't have anything bad to say about her. I am divorced. She got the job done. But I'm still dealing with this piece about my children. What happened was she said, hey, Will, you know what? I'm going to need a week or two. I'm going to reach out to some colleagues that specialize in this. And when you look at the law, it's unfortunate they call this cutting edge because they don't understand how to deal with it because the law is black and white. You have these agreements, and it's black and white, and the law doesn't know how to deal with it. But there are some attorneys out there that specialize in this kind of litigation. You got to find them. Cost money. And by this time, just like myself, I'm so drained with what's going on that it makes it even more difficult. And you better cross your T's and dot your I's and have excellent record keeping of, I called on this, call logs, text messages, not only between however you tried to reach your child, but how you tried to reach out to your ex. And in my case, this person is non-responsive, but that's besides the point. You better have good records of it, and you better get your wallet out. It's probably going to cost $5-10 grand. And at this point, it's very unfortunate that it's sort of like just drawing blood. The damage has been done. Because we can force this, but what good is forcing it if this damage has been done?
So yes, there's definite options of forcing it. There's definite options of using the legal system in your favor. But because of the parental alienation, that's the issue. So the overarching issue for everybody that's listening to the show is that the other person has painted, the parent that they're alienating into a certain corner, making them sound a certain way, be a certain way based on these false allegations that are being made. And so if you force more child visitation, what does that look like?
I don't think it looks good at all. I can exercise my court order all day long. I've taken the time to call the sheriff department and speak to a deputy, and the deputy said, absolutely, if you have a valid court order, we will go get your children. And I took a chance, and I asked the deputy. I said, how does that work out? And he said, not good. It is a traumatizing event. It doesn't look good for you. It doesn't look good for us because we have all this other stuff in the country with police. So we're gonna create a traumatizing event for a child that involves police and their father. How does this work out good? And he was just being honest. I will do my job for you, Mr. Will.
Yeah.
And I can use it. I can exercise it. I'm very apprehensive to do so because of the damage that it will cause, and it validates everything that she says. And it creates this traumatic event, and the kids have been through enough. I just want to see my kids, and have a nice time. But somebody doesn't want that to happen.
And that's interesting because I'm glad that he told you the truth because that is something to be said about that because you're right. It's a traumatizing event. It involves their father. Then you have this false narrative that's going on in the background to make you look bad, just like what
absolutely.
all parental alienation
and this
is.
goes so much farther than parental alienation. It is familial alienation. When you get blackballed, Grandma and Grandpa get blackballed. Aunts, uncles, friends, everyone gets blackballed. And when they paint this picture to make you this awful person, they all get shown the door like they didn't even exist. And it's incredibly painful for anybody out there listening. Like, my father's 85 years old. He's not well. He doesn't even know his grandchildren because she won't give them up. In particular, where I live, they're only 7 miles away. What kind of awful person does this? Not only to the father, but to people that are end of life. The end of life thing is kind of a wild thing. How evil can you be?
Well, let's step into that real quick, Will. So, back before y'all were, getting separated, back before the divorce, let's talk about how your kids and how everything was with your parents.
I didn't think it was bad. I got videos and stuff.
They were happy?
Yeah, I'm not a bad guy, and Mom and Dad aren't bad people. We got a little horse farm. It's kind of a cool little thing. Yeah. Especially for little kids. Who doesn't want to go over to Grandma's house and ride a pony?
Right.
For real,
That's
right?
Awesome.
Unbelievable. But that's not cool. That's no good.
Not now.
Who doesn't want to go hang out by the pond and jump in the water and try and catch minnows and go fishing and stuff? And one of the last visits I had with them, that's exactly what we were doing.
Wow.
And it was a great time, and it was all ended in this giant traumatic event, and that shut one of my daughters down. It really did. Done. I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to upset my mother. When it was me who upset Mom, but how did these children become such pawns?
Well, and then also the background behind the parental alienation, too, for everybody that's understanding this, is that once you're divorced, it's not about the money. It's not the house, not the car. It's nothing like that. Now the only thing that this person has control of is the kids.
It's my children, and it's so if we're playing level 5 chess and I can't win the game, let's get some children involved. I will maim this man with his children, and it's what's happened to me. I'm trying to move on with my life, and what's unfortunate is, how do you start over at 42, 43 years old? I'm too old to go want to make any more babies. I don't have the time to pick the right woman this time. What do you do? Yeah, it's a very difficult kind of thing. And I'll make it through the other side, and someday my children may come back around. They may not. It's really a poisoning of the soul.
Mm-hmm. And you don't know, and you have to kind of basically wait it out, because like what the sheriff was talking about and what you knew.
Right, it's just a terrible situation. Like, you're damned if you do. You are damned if you don't. Mm-hmm. Well, you didn't fight for me, Dad. You didn't, maybe I did. And just keep your records, folks. If these kids come back to me as an adult, I have stacks and stacks and stacks of why the marriage didn't work out in print for them to read. And maybe it'll either make them very angry, or they'll understand. And I don't know where my relationship with my children goes at this time, because what am I going to do? I'm not going to quit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to quit. I'll continue to send them things in the mail and try. But for everything that I can say, I don't know if they'll ever get those things. You got to be real sneaky about that, to have somebody write out the address so it doesn't look like Dad's handwriting. You got to go almost to another state, because Mom knows where I live, so if it's got a Florida postmark, she'll just throw it in the mail.
Right.
I don't think they get any of the birthday gifts, any of the stuff that I send.
Really?
And I don't get if they do, if I put cash in it, she might open that and just take it for herself. You know what I'm saying? It's some real dark, dirty stuff that's going on here, and I'm here with I've become friends with Ashley and said, you know what? Let's talk about this. So, if anybody else out there is going through it, maybe you're not alone. Is sort of why I'm spilling the beans here.
Well, and it's all control, and it's funny. It's not about parental alienation in my situation, but, my dad remarried. This was a long time ago, and I remember, I would send him, like, a Christmas card or a birthday card and everything, and I had no idea that his current wife was throwing away my stuff.
It's wild.
So people do this across the board.
It was happening, and it's so prevalent. Like, you talk about, borderline and bipolar. It's so prevalent today.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
every
third or fourth person, you might be dealing with nuts.
Oh,
like,
yeah. It could be BPD. It could be MPD.
Yeah, they're just wildly out of control, can't control their emotions, and you end up on the end of this, and then you go through a divorce, and they're so pissed at you. You know what? I'm going to get you. I am going to get you. And the only way I can get you, because it's all over, and I didn't get what I wanted, money, or I got everything I wanted, money, but you still want to see your kids, but I hate you so much, I'm going to take this away from you to make you miserable.
Well, and the big part, too, that we understand with folks with certain mental emotional dynamics is that they don't know where their kids end and they begin, because there's no boundaries. And so
zero boundaries. What is my 9-year-old daughter doing on Snapchat unsupervised? Or Discord? Are you kidding me? This is okay? And I only know this because I've had very short visits with them, but like, what's wild about it, when we talk about like the social media thing and the telephone thing, right? So check this out. When my daughter's with me, she don't miss a phone call from best little friend, does she? No, but she doesn't get Dad's phone call. So it really exposes the BS that's going on here. Exactly. Everybody's attached. You and I both are addicted to our phones. So is everybody out there. Somebody's listening to this on their phone, or they're listening to it on a computer. We're all addicted to this stuff, right? So why isn't Dad's phone getting through? But best friend or mom have absolute explicit access.
Yeah, their phone, their text, everything's going through.
Oh yeah, all day long.
And I think it's interesting though, because they really don't. There is no boundaries, and so if you divorce them, it's almost like you're divorcing all of them. Based on
absolutely. So I need to throw this little piece in for everybody out there listening. I was a real jerk. I went and married a woman with some children, and not only do my own children not talk to me, but the children from a deceased father who I raised, not one of them will talk to me. So this has been an all-out assault on me. And you could think that I'm a bad guy, but I don't see like why not one. How does that happen? You got any ideas? You got all these children, and some of them are becoming adults now, right? And not one will reach out, and I've tried to reach out, and sometimes I get a small response, but nobody's touching me.
Well, there's all the negative comments that have been made, but also there's that fact that I think that they don't want to hear it if they were to be. If they were
nobody
to reach
wants
out
that
to you.
wrath.
Well, what happened?
Nobody wants that wrath. Nobody wants to see that. I dealt with it. I was married to her. I didn't want it, and I stuck around way too long because I was taking the beating for the kids.
Right.
What do you do? Do you want your kids to be assaulted, or are you going to take the beating? Right? But in the end, everybody, you still end up losing because they decided that if you're not going to be part of their life, nor are the kids, then they take ownership of the kids like they were never yours.
Exactly. The interesting part too is you're right. Is that somebody in the situation, somebody has to be wrong, and so in order for them to create their victim reality, they have to make the other person out.
That's
to
right.
Be wrong.
They got to paint you so black that there's in the absence of light, there is nothing but darkness. So you are the darkest, most awful person that's ever walked the earth. And some of this is speculation, but when you live it, you start to see that it's not speculation. This is what's happening.
Yeah, and you don't want to believe this because it's just so awful. It's so extreme. The fact that you were with this person for many years, you lived your life with them, you were married to them, you took care of them. Many of you, created, built houses, paid for them, paid for even their education to go to school, going back to nursing school, whatever you paid for them to do. You took care of them. Maybe some of them were stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads, whatever. You took care of them, and now this is the grief that you're getting. You just don't expect that they would turn the kids, away from you.
Right, and you're going to have all kinds of relationships in your life, marriage, girlfriends, boyfriends, great friends. I will tell you what, there's nothing more heartbreaking than losing your children. For no good goddamn reason, except that somebody wants to maim you, and the marriage didn't work out, and now I'm gonna get one over on Will, and that's I want to control. I want to control this little piece. I'm gonna get him, and she's been successful.
What I also see, too, is that in divorce court, when this is happening, that one parent that's going to turn around and alienate the other parent usually has a tendency of trying to go after full custody at one point in time or another, or say that they're going to go after full custody at one point in time or another. And I think that happens a lot of times often, too. I've also seen that in divorce court when you have certain types of personalities, people with certain personality disorders, they will continue to fight that other person till the end, continuing to fight, even when it's over with, bringing them back into court to fight again.
Right, and in this situation, I have to bring her back into court because she's superseded the law.
Right.
She's just making her own rules. It gets expensive, it's painful, and where do you end up? I'm not going to give up on my children. I'm going to have one last little deal. I'm going to send them a letter. I'm going to say I tried my best, and I will be here on the other side waiting for you. I don't see any other options. It sort of sucks, but that's where you end. I still have a life. I can't upend my life and make my life miserable and her life miserable because I want to see my kids when she's not going to let. And believe me, I can go spend another $5-10 grand. You know what's going to happen? She's not going to do nothing about it. She doesn't care. It's going to be an inconvenience for her. And it doesn't feel good for me. I just want to see my kids. I don't want to inconvenience anybody more than needs to be inconvenienced. Just play by the rules.
Right. Just play by the rules, but also you're dealing with someone that has, them more often than you do, and so they have, they basically have their mouth and their ear basically all the time.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate the way that I earn my money. I have to travel a lot, so it is the way that it is. And there's no change in your life, not like that. You can't upend your life where you make good money and go, bag groceries at Walmart and expect to be able to support your family. It's America, but it's sort of like that's how it is. That's how my life worked out.
Makes total sense. When we return, we'll be talking more about some of the things you can do to be able to not only safeguard yourself, but have some of the information and evidence on your side when the kids do come back around, because that can be very helpful, because it's going to also make you feel better about the situation, confirm with yourself that you've done everything you can, but also in the future be able to provide this to them so that they can also see that, and for pretty much that's evidence and all that, right, to get them to understand where you've come from and also what you've tried to do. Stay tuned. Live your true life perspectives with your host, Ashley Burgess. We'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, Will and I have been talking about parental alienation, how to deal with it, how to understand it, and what your next steps are. You know, one of the things that I wanted to bring up real quick is one of the things that I really believe in is keeping a journal. So keeping a journal, a handwritten journal about everything that you've done. So let's say like she doesn't let you see your kids, you know, writing that down each day, the time that you're supposed to see them, when you did see them, when you weren't allowed to see them, and keeping record of that. So later on down the road, when the kids do come back around, you have this evidence and you have this record of what you try to do to take care of them and that you were there. And it's not just your word against their word. It's like this is actual physical evidence of each day I was supposed to have you and what took place. So keeping that journal is very important, guys, for anybody that's listening to this, women, men, whoever's listening to this that is being alienated, writing that down and keeping a ledger and a record of that. So, Will, okay, let me ask you, what are you currently doing? Are you doing anything right now to make some changes, or what are you up to?
I am. It really is with a heavy heart that I'm doing what I'm doing. I reached out to my attorney, and I've been busy, and it's really weird when you get into this part. It goes in slow motion because the heat of the divorce is over, but you miss your children, and you got your life, and you're working, and all these other things that are going on. So you become very calculated. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this amount of my time to do it. I have my records. I will provide the attorney with all the text messages between me and my ex-wife where she has made plans during my, court-appointed time. This document that says it's law, you're going to see your kids, where she's just disregarded that. And then all the text messages between me and my child. And I'm not really going to involve the children. This is more, you have to play by the rules because the damage is done here. Anybody listening, I'm not going to get to see my kids anytime soon, but other people got to play by the rules. So I'm going to make it known that that the rules apply, not only to me but to her. And it sucks because get ready, $5,000 minimum for this thing to go down, probably 10, 15, just to make my point. But you got to spend it, kids, because if you don't, when the kids come back, they might say you didn't try. So you got to make it known that you tried, and going forward after that, because she's still not going to, even if I do this and the court system does what it's supposed to, she's still not going to follow the rules, and the damage is done. But at least I'll have the piece of paper, and it'll be more valuable than the green paper I paid for it. Mm-hmm. At least I'll have something that when they come back to me all upset, I tried and I love you. You know what I'm saying? We'll get there. It's just incredibly painful, and anybody out there going through it, I got a pat on the back for you. Tomorrow's another day, and you get through it.
That's powerful, and I know that anybody out there that's going through this, you're probably going through this idea, should I do this? And I think that you're right. Having that to corroborate, how you feel and what you've done is smart. And you're right. I don't know if that's going to change her, but
and it won't change anything. Just make sure you're meticulous in your record keeping, and I mean meticulous. It should be. I think I've said this before. It should be handwritten. Don't put it on any electronic device that could be compromised. Write it and I don't like journal. She says journal. Like I got mixed feelings about a journal. Just make sure that you got some records. It will be beneficial to you for getting stuff, knowing what you did and looking back at it. Like I did this. I tried to spend this time, and it's an actual heartfelt record instead of just a text message or something. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with that. And words of encouragement, real quick, Will, before we head out.
Dark days. Every dark day, the sun comes up and life goes on, it sucks the situation that I found myself in, but my life is going to go on, and eventually my children will be there. And if you're having a hard time, just remember they're still your kids. They'll come back at some point. Keep your chin up, and every day's a new day. Mm-hmm. It'll all be good.
It's words of encouragement are powerful, and I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been awesome. I've known this woman for a while, and she's pretty cool people. So I'm glad everybody got to hear my side of something, and I hope it was helpful for anybody listening.
Very helpful, Will. And everybody that's listening, I hope that this is giving you words of encouragement and validation as far as the parental alienation is coming around, because it's hard to understand that this is what's happening.
Well, and it's real. It's a real thing. It happened to me.
It's real, and it happens. And so if you're dealing with that, kind of taking care of that, taking care of the responsibilities you need to do, but also being able to say, hey, eventually they will come back around.
They will. It's life. Everybody gets a new day. So we're hoping for the best, sort of expecting the worst. But we'll get through this. And, hey, maybe I'll come back and share some more after I, go through the court system again. Let you know how it went.
I would appreciate that. Will be back on the radio with us. In the meantime, there's more content coming up. YouTube, every week, every day, we have new video content. Stay tuned. We'll be back next week. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.